It's pretty common wisdom that diversification is a good idea when it comes to investing. It's also a great idea when it comes to business, diversifying your income streams, having more than one way to make money, such that if one dries up or one becomes not the goose that laid the golden egg, you've got other geese laying some sort of eggs. This metaphor is completely falling apart, but that's what we're going to talk about today. Specifically, one revenue stream of mine that's not the main revenue stream, but it's one that for which I'm very thankful, and one that you could incorporate into maybe your YouTube strategy to generate some real income. If you're new around here, my name is Joe Gilder. Been running an online business based around my YouTube channel that I started in 2009. I've got a free gift for you later in the video, but first, I want to give you a quick overview of my business and what it looks like in the different revenue streams that I have. Then we'll hone in on the one that's the topic of this video, which is making content for brands. So I started my YouTube channel 15 years ago. It was meant to support me in a sales job that I have selling music equipment, and I wanted to create some tutorial videos to help my customers. That grew into a six-figure business that I still run to this day. The primary revenue stream for me, and at one point I counted them out, I think I had 13 different revenue streams, but the primary one or two is courses and memberships. So my niche is music production. The type of business that I run is educational. So I'm teaching people in my YouTube videos. I'm encouraging them to join my email list in exchange for a free gift, and then I provide more value to that email list, and then occasionally ask the email list to buy one of my courses or sign up for one of my memberships. That is I'd say, if we're talking 80-20 principle, probably 80% of my revenue comes from courses and memberships. However, there are other ways that I generate revenue for which I'm very thankful, and that we're going to talk about today. Some of that would be like client works, doing work for actual clients. Some of that would be I've done some work leading worship at my church as a part-time staff member. That's a revenue stream. But the one I want to talk about today is making content for brands. So specifically, there's a company that I've been working with in different ways for many, many years, and that has turned into an ongoing relationship where they pay me several $1,000s every month to create content for them, and that's a part of my monthly routine is making content for them as well as making content for myself here on this channel and for Home Studio Corner. So I was thinking about it last night, talking with my wife. I was saying I used to listen to read a lot of Dan Kennedy's books and newsletters and watch his courses and things like that. And one of the things I always found so impressive with him was the sheer content of output, the number of newsletters that he wrote every month, different newsletters for different subscriptions, different tiers of subscription, all the books he would release, at least one a year, it seems like. And I realized last night talking to my wife, I used to be in awe of his creative output from a writing standpoint. But when I thought about my output as a video creator, it is up there as well. I do weekly videos for 3 different channels. I do basically 4 live streams a month, each of those being an hour. I also do 2 master classes for 2 different membership areas. And I think there was something else. That's the bulk of it. And I'm doing all of that every month. So I'm really good at making content. I've gotten really good at figuring out how to do it, at being efficient with it. But one of those channels for which I'm making YouTube videos for, and one of those masterclasses that I'm making every month for a membership area is for this particular brand. Now, this is a brand that makes both software and hardware that I use in my studio and that I like. It was an equipment and brand that I sold when I was working in that sales position. So as I started to build Home Studio Corner and talking about equipment that I used, because in just about every niche there's gear that you need, whether it's a whole lot of gear, like you're doing woodworking, you got to talk about all the different huge pieces of equipment you need in your woodworking shop, or musicians where it's things like guitars and pedals and software. There's a lot of things involved just to get up and running. And then, of course, there's always new things to buy, and people are always interested in what can they shop for and what kind of gear do you use. So there's, in a sense, endless opportunity, I would say, in most niches where there's equipment that your people need. It makes sense that you would have some recommendations for them. And if you do have recommendations for them, and if there are certain brands that you tend to use regularly, there may be an opportunity there for you to create content for them on an ongoing basis. So for me, the story was with this particular company, I loved their stuff. I used their software as my main recording software. And then I also use their hardware a lot as well. So I've become a bit of a fanboy, and I'm the kind of guy who likes, if I get something I like, I kind of like to go all in and stick with it. I don't want to have too many of, I was going to say too many things, but then I see there are like so many guitars over here, and this is just like a third of the guitars in this room. So I do like to buy things, and I like to have toys, of course. But I do like to be I like to be loyal to certain brands and kind of stick with them until they give me reason not to. And this particular company is one that I just enjoyed, and I liked working with. I liked using their stuff. So I started to develop a relationship with them, and I was using their stuff all the time in my videos. And then one day, out of the blue, I had an idea. I said, what if I offered them to make 100 YouTube videos, 100, it may have been 50. I think it was 100. 100 YouTube videos on their recording software that I use. And what if I said, in exchange for that, you send me a bunch of your cool equipment? Because they had a lot of cool like gear that they sold. Some of the pieces, I'm looking at some of the things I got right now, selling for $2,000-$3,000 each. So I probably asked for about $10,000 worth of equipment. And I don't know, I remember it was a Sunday afternoon. I was just feeling confident, I guess. And so I shoot off this email to the VP of sales. I was like, hey, I want to make 100 YouTube videos about your software that I use. Tutorial videos that you can put on your channel. In exchange, could you send me, and I just put like a bullet list of stuff. I expected him to come back and say, you're funny, or I'll sell those to you at cost or something, but you're not getting them for free, or I'll give you one of those things, but certainly not all of them. I got a reply, I want to say within an hour, where he said, yep, sounds good, send me your address, we'll send that to you. Everything on my list, except for I wanted like a custom desk, but they didn't actually sell one. So I had one of those made here in Nashville. But everything else came, and a few weeks later it shows up in boxes, and I've got all this gear, and of course I'm on the hook now to make these videos. But I was proactive. I made an exchange, and now this particular exchange was for equipment versus money, but there's a lesson there. Also, it was the first transaction between us, and that led to many, many more transactions over the years. I would do more videos for them in exchange for other gear. I would occasionally present at some sort of event they were doing. And then came right before 2020 and the COVID pandemic, I was in a bit of a hard place emotionally, mental health, is burnt out, and kind of floundering in my business, and revenue was going down. I was feeling kind of lost, didn't feel like I knew what I was doing anymore, just a season of meh. And they called, the same guy that I pitched about this, let me make 100 videos for you for a bunch of gear. He calls up and he says, hey, you wouldn't want to come work for us for a while, would you? And normally I would just say, no, I love doing what I do. But at the moment, I had another business that I ran with a friend. We'll talk about that business some other day. It was a membership that was kind of adjacent to my business. We were shutting that business down. So that revenue, which accounted for half of my income, was going away. And so I was nervous. My wife and I both were nervous about the future. And then this phone call comes and says, hey, could you come work for us? And I thought I'd never work for another company again. I'd never have a, quote, job again. But I also felt like, man, I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. This would be a nice reprieve, some steady income for a minute while I kind of figure out what I'm doing with my life. It's funny, in hindsight, things weren't nearly as dire as I'm saying there were. My business didn't even drop below the $100,000 a year mark. But it got real close. And the previous year, it had done 2 something, and then it dropped down to almost 100 that year. So in hindsight, it was probably a good idea. But anyway, I decided to go to work for them. And go to work for them meant basically do what you do, just make videos for us like you do for your own business. That was basically make a bunch of content for us, be the face of this software that you've been talking about and using for years. Just do it for us on our channel as an employee, and you'll come out to events. And basically that was the arrangement. And so they had just started doing kind of tutorial type content themselves with another guy who was an employee for them. So then I came on to kind of join him, and together we would just take on the world of YouTube for this particular channel. Fun fact, that channel had just crossed the 100,000 subscriber mark when I joined. My channel had just crossed the 100,000 subscriber mark, or it was very close. And then in that next year, we took it from 100 to 200,000 in a year. And then now it's at 400, I think. So very proud of the work we've done there. But a few years later, I had rebuilt my own business. So worked for them, kind of tore my business down to the studs, got rid of all the courses that I'd created all new courses, one at a time, painstakingly, like flagship courses, start from scratch, and use those to rebuild the business back up. And a few years later, that was all done. So I quit the job and said, okay, I don't need to be an employee anymore, but thanks. But I knew I had relationships. I'd been making more than weekly content for them for a few years at the time. And I said, hey, what about this? Instead of me just leaving, how about this? How about I drop down to being a contractor with you? We set up a contract together, and I will deliver X pieces of content a month, and you will pay me X dollars. And I'm no longer an employee. I don't have to go to meetings. I don't have to go. You can't send me all over the world because I'm an employee and I have to do what you tell me to do. I'm my own boss. And one of the things I do is I have a contract with you agreeing to make certain amounts of content. And they did not hesitate. They said, absolutely, let's do that. And at the time, I was able to tell them, you can pay me half of what you were paying me as a full-time employee. And that'll be my pay for this contract that we're arranging. And they said, yes, absolutely. So I thought, okay, I should have asked for more because they probably would have kept me for what I was making as a full-time employee, perhaps. And that's the current arrangement that I have. We're a couple of years into that arrangement now. I negotiated the pay up a little bit last time around for the new contract. But the contract is essentially this. I deliver a weekly YouTube video, a monthly masterclass for the membership area, and then a couple of like vertical videos, and then I do a live stream for their members as well that I co-host with the other guy. And that's the arrangement, and that's the agreement, and that has turned into, I wrote it down, it's about $3,500 a month that I make just doing that. Now, in my business, I'm generating $25,000 to $30,000 overall in Home Studio Corner, the business. So this is a kind of, if it was a pie chart, it'd be like a slice of the pie, but a decent slice, right? That's a nice amount of income on months when I don't have anything else going on promotion-wise, a month where things are dipping or whatever. I've always got this income coming in, and it doesn't take me all that much time to do because I've been doing this for 15 years. Content I can do. I can do it really well, and I can do it really fast. And I've established myself as like one of the faces of this brand. So in a way, I put myself in a position I could continue doing this for a really long time, and I could probably dictate terms to a point, because they were recently acquired by $1 billion company, so they got some money. But the point is, I was able to work this, what would have just been a distant relationship where like, hey, I use your stuff. I was able to, by taking some initiative, was able to develop a deeper relationship that said, hey, I can do good work for you. I can make good content for you that will help your audience and help you and I both in the process. And that turned into a relationship that has led to this contract that brings in, $40,000 a year or whatever that adds up to, for me making some videos for them. Who knew you could make money just making YouTube videos for other companies? That is the opportunity that I present to you today. By the way, have you checked out my business game plan? I developed this acronym when I looked at how I've run my business and how I've grown it, how I've regrown it from the nosedive of 2020. And I realized I go through the same basic 4 steps over and over and over again. And those make an acronym called GAME. And I call it a business game plan. I can tell you all about it in this free training. Just go to joegilder.biz/game. That'll give you access to, I believe it's like a 45-minute masterclass where I draw out the diagram and show you the process and teach it all to you. 100% free, by the way. Go check it out. Okay, so now I'm pulling from my experience to give you 4 steps to think through, 4 steps to take to move yourself towards potential income from other brands. Obviously, your mileage may vary. You may find after a couple of years that the brand deals, the brand content makes way more than anything else you do on your channel. It might be your whale. It might be your 80% that you do. That would be really cool. I can't know what that is for you, but we can talk through the process and I can give you some ideas of ways to strategically approach that. Sound good? Okay. The first thing is grow your brand first. If you're just starting, this conversation probably just needs to be put on the shelf for a season because don't take this the wrong way. If you have no channel or a baby channel, or you're just thinking about starting a channel, which is the most annoying thing, People that has no value. So if you are a baby channel, you're not bringing really any value to the table for this company. You might think you are, and you probably could. You could probably make some great content for this company. They have no incentive to work with you, right? Especially if we're talking about, hey, I'm going to make some videos for you in exchange for just a small exchange, even something like that. If your channel has 0 subscribers, they don't get much out of that, right? And if anything, if they have a channel that has decent following, a couple 100,000 subscribers, let's say, or even just like 10, 15,000 subscribers, and you make content for them, guess what? You're getting exposure on their channel. You're getting most, if not all, of the benefit. They're not getting much out of that. When I reached out to this company for the first time, I had been running my channel for, let's see, I was living in that house. The twins were just born. So I had been running the channel for, I think, 3 or 4 years. Yeah, it was somewhere in the 2 to 4 year range since I had started my channel. And I started my channel doing like 3 videos a week, and then it was weekly videos. Several years, and I'd built up to somewhere in the 20 to 40,000 subscriber range. So I had an audience, not the biggest audience in the world, but an audience. And that they already knew about me because I was using their software. I had developed a name for myself in the YouTube world. They had asked me to come speak at an event once. I was in their world. And so when I reached out with an offer, they said, oh yeah, we know you. We know your subscriber. This would be great. Imagine the exposure. This dude with 40,000 subscribers is going to use our stuff. Yes, absolutely. Let's throw some more stuff at him. None of that is possible. None of that can happen if I haven't first focused on growing my own thing. So even if your plan, you really think you're going to lock in on this making content for brands thing, unless you are already a famous person in your niche, you got to get there first and then think about this later. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear, but that's how this works. Like I said at the beginning, the brand deals that I have, those are not even the core of my business. They're not even they're maybe like 20% of my overall revenue. I still like them. I still appreciate them. I'm still thankful for them, but I was building the other stuff, and that's what led to this stuff. It's almost like this idea of success begets success. If I'm successful over here, it's like opportunities come out of nowhere over here. So don't sit around and wait for these opportunities to come out of nowhere. Start going after success over here. Build your thing and see what kind of opportunities fall in your lap. They tend to do that when you're already in motion versus sitting back waiting for somebody to notice your brilliance and then send money to you. Right? All right. The second thing, identify brands that you could do potential deals with. So as you're growing your audience, you're not going to put this thought completely out of mind. You're probably in the process of growing your channel and growing your audience. You're going to be thinking, what are some of the brands that I could see as long-term partners with me? Might not be everybody. It's probably not going to be Amazon. You're probably not going to be like, hey, Amazon, can I make content for you? Although they have some content creation systems that are pretty interesting that I've not looked at much. But typically, I would think smallish brands, niche brands that your niche would know really well. Now, you'll know this better than I will. In my niche, there are kind of the big brands that are really small in the grand scheme of things, like big, like guitar brands like Fender guitars. That's a household name. But then there are lots of niche guitars. The software that I use, there are probably a dozen different competing software in the small little audio world, most of them being fairly small companies. So there are opportunities there, but it needs to be a brand that you use. If you're going to use a brand because you think there might be a brand deal opportunity later, that could work out, but it's a much more authentic thing if it's something you already like and use. I know that seems obvious, but if you're chasing the brands that you think would be most open to a brand deal, I don't think that's going to work out as well as you using stuff that you legitimately enjoy using and that you would use whether you had a brand deal or not. That's where I'm at with this company that I work with. And then one thing to think about too when identifying these brands, what are brands that are doing really well in making the products that you love, but maybe they're missing out on the content piece. That was kind of the situation I kind of forced myself into. They weren't really doing tutorial videos. They were doing kind of typical marketing where they would make these nice shiny videos that showed off the product, but they weren't teaching anybody how to use anything. That's where I came in. Tutorial videos to me, if I had a company, if I started over and I had a company selling a physical thing, I would put a lot of emphasis on creating content to teach people how to do the thing that my product helps them do. So if I had a typewriter company, I might have all kinds of courses and content about writing the great American novel, or poetry, or things that people are going to do with the typewriter. Does that make sense? So I started Home Studio Corner teaching people music production. And at the time, and really still to this day, most companies don't do much of that. Some of the retailers are doing it now, but the actual manufacturers, the most creative they can get is they will partner with, a famous band to do a music video using their product. But as far as like teaching people how to do the thing that their product allows them to do, there's not much out there, at least in the music world. And you may find the same is true for your world as well. So where are there big opportunities if you just became the go-to resource for how to use QuickBooks in the real estate rental world? I've got a friend who does that. Like that's a niche, but it's probably a big niche, and there's probably a lot of people who would connect with you on that, and then maybe there would be opportunities with QuickBooks or some other accounting thing. I don't know the specifics, but you see what I'm saying? You're building, you're using stuff that you would use otherwise, but also looking for opportunities of like, man, I wish they made better content. I wish they made, that's literally one of the things I thought when I started Home Studio Corner. I was looking for videos one night working late at my sales job. I was bored, and like one software company had like 2 videos on their website about how to use their plugins to do something really cool with guitars, I think. And I thought, that's great. I want more. There wasn't more. So I said, well, I'll make some. And the rest, of course, is history. All right, so the third thing, make content first using the brand that you're thinking about working with. This is probably obvious, but if you're using a specific brand of camera, use the camera, feature the camera, talk about the camera, make tutorials with that camera in hopes that the camera company will see that and you'll get their attention. Camera may be a bad idea because we're talking like Sony and Canon. They're big, huge companies. But if hopefully it's a smaller-ish company that would maybe really appreciate the content that you're making. And once you make the content, you be the first person to initiate something with them. You can wait around for them, but there's no reason why you can't develop relationships and initiate, hey, I got a proposal. Which leads us to our fourth thing, actually make a proposal to them. So make some content already and put it on your channel with no quid pro quo, no I'm putting it on my channel in hopes that they're going to give me money or make a deal with me. You gotta give some value first. That's the whole principle behind that. The game plan, by the way, is giving value before you ask for something in return. Give value in the form of make some really great content on your own channel, just talking about this brand. And at some point, you will get to a place where you feel like you have enough, you've created enough value, you could go in for an ask. And here are 2 types of proposals I would recommend. The first I would recommend is just a one-off proposal where you say, I will do this in exchange for this. Specific, like end date. I will make 1 video in exchange for 1 piece of equipment, or I will make 1 video in exchange for an email blast promoting my company, or I'll make 10 videos in exchange for a couple of pieces of your software, whatever. Something specific, something where no one's committing like the rest of their life to each other, but you get to feel each other out and you get to do some actual business together. That would be the thing that I would propose. And then the second thing I would offer is you do an ongoing thing. So it's kind of the difference, similar to the difference between courses and memberships. A course is a one-time thing. You buy it, you have it. It has a start point and an end point. At some point, I have finished that course. But a membership is ongoing. A membership is ostensibly, ideally, forever. You sign up and then you're paying every month to be a part of this membership until you say it's not valuable anymore and you cancel. So some sort of ongoing relationship would be ideal because you can say, I will deliver, this is what I have. I will deliver 8 videos a month. You will pay me $3,500 a month. And we will do this for a year. That's what our arrangement is by year. But really, the contract is this contract will just continue until one of us says no, which is pretty great. That's probably the ideal way to do it. But we can kind of renegotiate every year, which I've done thus far. But that would be ideal. So maybe a one-time offer, see how that goes. You may not like working with them, or you may find, oh, this is like, we fit like a glove, and they're starting to ask you, can you come work for us? You're like, well, how about this instead? Either you could go work for them. That might be an option. Maybe your YouTube channel led to this dream job that you wanted. Or you say, hey, that sounds cool. Well, here's what I'm willing to do. How about I make some content for you and maybe I go do some events for you. I go speak at some things for you. and you pay me this much for the content, and then we have like an arranged pre-negotiated day rate and travel day rate that when you send me to, New York to do a presentation, this is how much that will be. And then I have reserved the right to say yes or no when you have these requests. That is a win-win-win for them and for you. Man, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's such a fun thing, because everybody wins in that scenario. So those are my ideas about making content for brands. I know I'm speaking from a very specific story, from a very specific way that it's worked out for me, but I think there's a lot of lessons there and things that you can apply to what you're doing. Final piece of advice: always do what's valuable for your audience. Yes, you want to grow this into a business. Yes, you want to potentially have some brand deals, but don't chase things to the extent that you stop providing value for your audience. Meaning you're working with a brand that's not good for your audience, or you're so focused on pitching everybody else's stuff that you kind of stop providing value for your own audience. Providing value is in some ways subjective, but it's easy to measure, right? If my channel is growing and getting views, I'm probably doing something valuable. If it's not, I might not be doing anything valuable. Or it could be growing superficially and there's not much value there. Always serve the audience first, because the audience is the reason these opportunities come. You want to really appreciate and care for and nurture that audience. That doesn't mean you don't sell things to them. I sell things to my audience, and it pisses a few people off occasionally. That's just part of the deal. But for the most part, the people who love me really, really love me. I'm in the current list. I'm shooting this video. I'm launching a new course on the first business, and I've got customers who have spent thousands of dollars with me. They buy the new course without even thinking. Like, at this point, I've taught them so much, they may not even need it, but I've provided so much value to them, and I give them so much free value in addition to the value they get from the stuff they've paid for, that they would kind of buy anything that I put out. If I stop providing value, that will stop. So I have to every day kind of earn my way forward and continue to be a valuable resource for them. But at this point, it's so ingrained in me, I could not imagine doing it any other way. But if you're starting out, especially, you've got all the things you're thinking about, and it's easy to put the customer, the subscriber, the audience over here and focus on the money and the stuff. I get it. Like, I'm doing videos talking about how to make money online, but none of this money stuff happens if this audience isn't taken care of really well. All right, that's it for this video. If you're new to the channel and you haven't seen this video on how I make $25K a month online from my YouTube channel, that would be my next video that I'd recommend to you. Otherwise, if you've seen it already, you're good to go. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.